And here we are with another week of Ammonize, and I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this one, not least myself, because this week we have the delightful, the delectable Scott Scowcroft. Oh, no, sorry. We have Mia Voss on the show. And I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this.
Did you notice what was missing, by the way? My tiara was missing.
My guest expert, Scott Scowcroft. Delighted to have you with us. And, of course, the glamorous Lee Rickler.
Evening. Morning, all.
What I'll do is hand this straight over to you guys to introduce yourselves, and then get into an hour of letting Mia run riot with my brain. So, Mia Voss, finish your drink. Scott, introduce yourself.
I'll start things off. Scott Scowcroft from Seattle, Washington. The Scott treatment. I am, I guess, the reluctant entrepreneur, and I repackage Hangouts on air so that they are in delectable small pieces, or I evergreen them.
Love that. Reluctant entrepreneur. Yes, I can think of a lot of people that can kind of fit. Lee, say hello.
Hello. I am Lee Rickler. My company is Point and Stare. We're an online production agency based up in lovely, glamorous King's Cross in London.
I only said say hello. You give some people an inch, they take a mile.
I did say hello.
Mia.
I'm just taking it all in. There's Lipstick Lee. There's accidental. I'm the accidental entrepreneur. You're the reluctant entrepreneur, right, Scott?
Exactly.
I need to compliment you on how succinct your line is. Both of you guys. I get it. I understand it. It sounds good. Your elevator pitch. So I'm Mia Voss of the Mia Connect. I'm also now Hangout Host for Hire. So that's me in a nutshell. And also co-host of the Food and Booze Show with Chef Dennis Lively, whom I met in person this week.
I bet that was fun. Did you manage to get him drunk?
He really was very difficult about that. He really resisted me, so I did the drinking for him. He really did. I gotta tell you, it was such a free-for-all with Chef Dennis, Maggie Unzueta, who you guys know, right?
Yeah.
Maggie.
You had no trouble getting Maggie to drink, did you?
Oh no. I had to pry it from her hand. Give me my booze. Maggie, Joanne Woolley, I don't know if you guys know her. She's signed for a baby. She's very interesting. And then we met up with Denise Wakeman and Rebecca Radice last night. So.
Yeah, and you had some Hangouts there. I'm going to perhaps impose upon you, but after the show, could you put some links in the comment stream to some of the Hangouts you were on over the weekend?
You bet.
People can see what you were doing.
Pretty instrumental weekend for Hangouts and introducing some different brands in the eco-wellness area to Google Hangouts and YouTube content. And Jean Layton produced. We also got to speak with Jean Layton and Amy Valpone, who's the Healthy Apple, and she was on the suggested user list a while ago. So.
Cool. So, we already touched briefly there on the very first thing that we want to be talking about, which is Hangout Host for Hire. I mean, this is a pretty new kind of job title. It's something that, 2 years ago obviously couldn't happen because Hangouts just wasn't ready at all. Mm-hmm. And it's a thing, I think even a year ago, that would have been a very, very tricky sell. I think even now, it's not going to be an easy sell. Yeah. Because you're limiting it to one platform. The minute you say Hangout Host for Hire, you've just wiped out 99% of the market.
Yes.
So that's one of the things to think about. My first suggestion would be video host for hire. Definitely. All the way.
Actually, and that I just say it to you guys because you know it's so good. When I actually had some cards printed out that just says brand hosting that gets you noticed. And that's it. And then if they're interested. By the way, you look so clear and shiny today. In a good way, Eamon.
Oh, man.
Your background looks good. Yeah, and you got, look at, he dressed up for me. Look at this.
It's a work week,
It's a work day. No, but thank you for that feedback. I felt the same way because a lot of people do like Hangout Host for Hire, but I realize these are also people that are in that world. And so we really get a little caught up in this microcosm. And being at this conference this weekend that, again, was with 350 bloggers, who are in the eco-wellness industry, and then brands such as Rudy's Bakery, Dr. Bronner's Soaps, Nordic Naturals, Organic Valley, Nature's Path, Applegate. You guys in the States are familiar with some of these. You know, they're just diving into, they dive into Twitter a lot, but not really into Google+. So we really got to show them a lot of good stuff on that.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean the thing I absolutely love about video marketing generally is it's so cross-platform. This is the ultimate shareable content that pretty much embeds as is on anything else. You know, you can put the YouTube link in Twitter, in LinkedIn, in any of the other platforms, and you get the video. And that is the most portable form of content I have seen. There's nothing else that gets across like that, except for maybe infographics.
Well, and you know what's kind of hard about this is I feel I've been a little hesitant in kind of pushing that, that I'm really moving away from it just being about Google+. We said this in the green room, but more about the video content. And again, how you choose to share that out. I like opening that up a lot more so that it's not just yes, I'm okay with that, Lee. So that it's not just about it's only Google+. It's only through Google events, although for me, people know that. But what was cool about this weekend is we got to actually do these live hangouts and have people walk by, and you guys, you should seen people's face when they saw, one, how easy it was, you know, per se, and then just kind of how fun it was, well, at least for me and Chef.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's been said a few times, you know, the goal is always for the technology to disappear, for this to just feel as natural as sitting down together at a table. When it goes right, that's how it is.
Yes.
But
yeah,
how often does it go right first go? And
well, and that's where, and for me, I have a couple of different ways that I do this. One is specifically, I don't know if you guys have seen some of the shows that I'm doing for Lotus, Black Lotus, and that's where I just literally come in as the host. It has nothing to do with the Mia Connect. I don't do a call to action or anything. It's just the skill set of one saying it's presented by Black Lotus, so it's kind of cool because it almost reminds me of like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Remember that, Scott? You guys remember that? I have to take this headset out because I'm getting a lot of feedback. Will you tell me if I'm echoing, please? How about now?
No, you're fine.
Okay, good. Woo, that was like having a poltergeist in my ear. Oh, that's no bueno. But it's kind of fun because then I just literally show up as this vehicle for their message, and then working with somebody behind the scenes like lovely Lee Rickler. Although he's not behind the scenes, he's right there in front of us. And we feed a lot of questions, and then we discuss with an expert on cybersecurity, which quite frankly, I'm learning a ton because I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about SEO is that I get to dive into other people's businesses regularly.
Yeah, right?
Really,
isn't that fun?
Really get to learn them because, you know, my style of SEO is broader than just SEO. I touch the whole marketing sphere, so I need to understand their market. I need to understand their product. I need to understand who's buying this, who's not, and why, and really get into that.
Do you know what's another industry that's like that? You're going to crack up, but my very first job, I was an insurance agent out of high school, and I was an insurance agent for about 10 years, and before I went to college, and that was the same. It was commercial insurance, and I'll tell you, it was very cool. You got to learn about a lot of different businesses.
I think that's actually a rule for business to business generally, isn't it? If you're doing it right, if you do a service for business, you need to know about their business, and it's a fascinating journey. It's certainly one of those things, you know. If anybody in the audience is watching and thinking, you know, oh, I love that kind of stuff, well, it's a great way to learn about business is to have a service that works for other business.
Yes, yeah, and then boy, you talk about you really need to get to know everything from your local printer to the grocer or whoever becomes your client. So I'm with you on that one, brother. There's some fun comments. I want to say hi to Yassine. He says, I'm worldwide host for hire.
So I'll be keeping an eye on the comments, but we don't tend to pull them in too much on this week's because I don't want to waste your hour. You've got an hour here. Let's get the most out of it that you can. So the first thing that I think we really want to talk about is where's the audience for Hangouts. And I know, we've had a couple of discussions where we say it's not about the studio audience. The studio audience is about giving you the right feel. It's about having fun. We love our studio audience. We love engaging with them. But they are kind of representing everybody else as well. The big audience is the YouTube audience. That's the largest search engine. In most real ways, it outstrips the rest of Google. There's nobody that spends 3-4 hours just doing search after search after search for entertainment on Google, but there's exactly that on YouTube.
Do you want me to comment on that?
If you want to.
I'm ready. Well, I mean, I think so. I think there's two things that we're talking about here. We're talking about content and audience. That was the one thing we were trying to drive home for a lot of people, really getting laser focused on what their intent is. Because a lot of people don't want to create content until they have an audience. And I try and tell them that they really do need to start the content. I mean, I think about my first couple shows. One, I only did them as, and this is back in, when was this? I guess, yeah, early 2013. So they hadn't really done, I don't think they had events yet. I didn't really do it as an event. I just started a YouTube broadcast, just doing like bit.ly start my HOA kind of, or start my HOA. So, but now I have this content that I can refer back to because my very first show was with Shauna Coronado, who people love. She's this green, crazy pants that I just love. She's really big into the green movement. But yeah, I didn't have anybody watching it at the time. So again, the content or audience, and then I think not getting caught up on one or the other is always a good idea. Just start doing it though. You can always edit it, right, Scott?
Well, with the caveat, the more prepared you are, and the more professional you are, the more practiced you have, and the better the technology, the less editing and post-production that you need. It's kind of a balance. You either pay up front or you pay later. And in the early days of Hangouts on Air, there's a real need for heavy editing because we're all kind of new at this, and we're all kind of feeling our way. But as time goes on, at the end of the day, the goal is to be able to do one of these and have minimum editing. There will always be a need to, you're addressing something that's live and something that's timely, and so you might want to take out a few things. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that there's a sweet spot there.
Yeah.
I think there is, and I think that is the education component for a lot of people. Is these. It's like those mixed messages. Can I tell you funny? I always laugh about it. Here's the best mixed message I've ever seen. When you see warning signs for mountain lions, it'll say something like, don't look at him directly, don't turn your back on him, but try and look bigger, but don't get his attention. You're like, what do you want me to do? I don't get it. So it's the same thing. Like, do you just get started? You jump in? Do you over prepare? I would say the biggest thing that you really do have to be prepared. And I think we saw a good example of that on a Hangout recently of someone who said they were very, very prepared and did every single thing wrong I've ever seen on a Hangout. So I would use that as a cautionary tale of what not to do. You got to just do your homework. You got to do things like get in Ronnie Venture's group or get in a community, get your script down, prepare your guests, check, recheck, never be on Wi-Fi. Shut everything down. There's a ton of great checklists out there that you can do to get you started.
Yeah, absolutely. And most importantly of all, watch some of the other successful Hangouts to know what the level is, what the expectation is, because that particular example there, apparently she had done over 100
hours.
And
we're so mean.
Maybe you should have watched some others, because if that is the quality you'd been doing for 100, how were you? If you're only practicing, how are you going to learn? You're only learning from your mistakes. The things you haven't done, you can't learn from. Whereas I try and watch hundreds of Hangouts.
Yes, and you can't evolve until you get started, because all you guys know, you've done shows. There's a ton of evolution as you start, and you just adjust, and then you say, I don't want to do that anymore. I always go back and rewatch my shows, either to do the timestamp or just to rewatch it and go, one, I missed stuff, because you really are in the zone when you're hosting a show, especially with more than where two or more are gathered to get biblical on you. But you definitely you want to rewatch it, and then but you don't really know what you want to do until you get started. So, and my caution on that with watching other shows is you just still know what your style is going to be to do that, because I've had people that are like, oh, I could never be your style. I'm like, that's not your personality. Of course you wouldn't. You want to be your own style. And I'll give you an example of an over prepping that I did. You want to hear a story?
Go.
I'm going to tell you a story. So Guy Kawasaki's coming on my show, right? First of all, I know I'm like sloppy fifths out of like 5 shows he had been on that week. So I'm like, all right, I got to bust this mother out. So I start watching all these shows of guys that I love. Stefan and Jeff and those guys had him on. Jason Weiser, totally different style than me. Love him to death. Several others. I mean, Greg is in the other room like, are you going to start talking to this guy? Like, you watch more Guy Kawasaki, TEDx, Hangouts, all this stuff. So the show's on Friday, and Thursday comes along, and I look at him and I go, dude, I don't think I can do this. I'm like, I am more nervous than the long-tailed cat in the room full of rocking chairs. I'm like, I just lost my mojo. And then he gave me the coach speech, and he's like, well, then don't do it. And I was like, what? He's like, because I've never heard you say that. He goes, you've got to do your own style. He's like, because you over-prepared. And he really kind of gave me a stern speech. It was funny. He's like, you're not going to be that way. You've got your style. You know you've got it. And so I had all these notes. And Guy and Peg come on, and they start riffing on each other, and they start having fun. And I don't know if you guys ever saw it. I just took all my papers. I was like, F it, and just let them run with the show, which I usually don't do. But guess what? They've never been able to do that. They had a ton of fun. People learned stuff about both Guy and Peg and their dynamic that you don't really see, and it was fun. So that was my story.
I think
great story.
Finding your own voice is absolutely essential. Know what you can do, or as Manny St. Victor says it, go where you're beautiful. Me, I avoid shows that are over-scripted. I get bored if I've already covered the thing once. Once I've said a thing, I've said it. I've done that. Now I want to move on to the next thing. So if I do a dry run, if I do a rehearsal, that's it. I'm not going to... What you get from me if you do a rehearsal is you get an example of everything I am no longer going to say. It's kind of like, right, now you know that's not going to be in the Hangout. Should we get on with the actual one? Or maybe, let's go with this fresh in the first place.
Can I flip the script on you and ask you that same question for yourself on getting your own style? Because this is a different format. Did you struggle with that of like, I got to be like this, or I got to be like that, or I can't do this or do that?
I'm lucky. I mean, I'm actually doing something I've been doing for 20 years. This is how I do consulting, except that most of my consulting was always face-to-face. So more and more virtual consulting. That's only the last few years. It was usually driving all over the country, going to visit the Welsh Tourist Board or the Bank of Scotland in Scotland, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
That's what I did.
It's been very eye-opening for me. I had an experience last year. I was involved with this mastermind group here in Denver. Really liked them, but always kind of there was something in my brain that was like, this may not be it. It was about 20 or 25 people, pretty intense, twice a month, and just schlepping twice a month during, rain, snow, sleet, whatever. And this was when I was doing the Google Hangouts, and so I ended up putting them for one because they just never got it. I mean, even after a year and a half, they're like, where do I go? Where do I start? And I was like, enough already. Like, it just was. They really weren't. It was hard. It was like a breakup, but they weren't my target audience. And I just had to admit it. Like they're just not that into me, and I'm just not that into them. And it was because one of the things they would do is like, oh, you need to have these certain amount of called one-on-ones per month. And so, you're just driving all over the place trying to find parking. First of all, if you're a girl, you got to put this going, right? You guys know, look how pretty you are. You got to get that stuff going. So, there's makeup time, parking time, You know, the whole thing. When if you're doing a Hangout, you would be like, oh gosh, you're right, and looking something up and sending them the link right off the bat, or following up and getting stuff done. It's such a GSD way to get things done, either through Hangouts for Business, consulting, and then you can record it privately, right? You can have it later.
So we all know that. It's just so frustrating that they out there, the people that you're talking to, and I did the same thing. When I started getting involved in Hangouts, I thought, well, for a well-balanced life, I should actually do something in person with people. So I joined one of these networking groups as well. And after a year, they went around the table talking about marketing for the next year, and it was Facebook. They never got G+, and it never passed their lips. So I left. Same experience as you.
This
I
may help.
Go ahead.
I still do face-to-face consulting. I still push face-to-face consulting, but they're going to be paying for my travel time and my expenses. So the advantage to them is that rather than me spending half a day on site, to be worth spending half a day traveling there and back, is that they can buy an hour, and an hour I only do virtually, and so that kind of puts the understanding on them of what they're getting.
I like that a lot. You know, we had. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'll just jump in and then give it right back to you. In addition, when we're doing it locally, it's like doing business within a department store. But on Hangouts, it's like doing it in a skyscraper. And there might only be 3% of the people in the in the stadium, or however you want to phrase it, who need or want our skills. It's just, do you want 3% of a few hundred people, or 3% of thousands and tens of thousands of potential people out there? The internet just erases geographical boundaries, and so it expands the service area to a huge, just to a huge audience.
I'm Instagramming you, by the way.
Smile. Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, I love that. I love that fact. Well, I love what both of you just said. Yeah, I mean, it really is about maximizing the most of anything that you do. So great point. What's that 3% of? Right? I'm writing that down.
The 3%.
Yeah.
And that's reference to a book that someone had written, and they talked about if you're talking to a stadium, only 3% of the people will actually need your services right now. But if you talk to everybody in the stadium, eventually some of the other ones might come around to needing your services. It's just that they don't need them right now, but by that time the relationship will have already been formed.
Yep. That's something I do. So there's a women's networking group that I've spearheaded for a couple years, and I've handed it off finally. I like to just show up as the grand poobah, but it was a crap ton of work to get to that point. It's called Crave Denver. We just put our second book out recently, and it showcases all women entrepreneurs. But one of the things that I try and coach those gals on too is just not being really short-sighted about connections, or talking to someone and you're like, oh, you don't want to buy what I have to sell, and then you're not interested in them, and you cut that off because you don't know if there's two people that are inside their group that they haven't really found out the need yet. But I was just reading Enchanting on the plane, by the way, speaking of Guy Kawasaki. I really like that book a lot. Just if you make a difference or you make an impression on them, then later on they're going to remember, man, I met this guy Scott, and he just does this really cool thing, and I loved how he put it and how he worded it. So I know you're thinking about doing video. He might be able to help you. That person may not have anything to do. I mean, they may own a brick and mortar, or something, maybe a stay-at-home mom, but they know that their friend is doing that.
Yeah, I'll just quickly pick up this one from Daniel. And as much as large businesses like to save money, it's within budget. Well, exactly that. This is kind of my point, Daniel, is that a lot of them would rather deal face to face, and as long as I'm getting more money for that and my expenses are covered, I don't mind that at all.
Yes.
But the ones who want to be more economical, there is now a reason for them to be doing, a quick 1 hour hangout instead of I mean, they can lose a whole day of business over this because
Sure.
everyone's sort of rushing around to meetings before the meeting to discuss what they're going to be able to talk about in a meeting with me. Oh, we've got an outside consultant coming in. Right, let's quickly go past legal and check whether we can mention this project and that project. And, you know, should we do this and should we... So they end up having a whole day of meetings to have 2-3 hours face-to-face with me. I don't mind that, you know.
Hey, as
Not my day.
as long as you, I mean, and that's something I know from doing business travel and so forth. There's a lot of factors that I think you have to add in. One is the travel time, which, you know, some people do like half of their hourly rate. You've got to put that in there. I had somebody ask me to host an event and said, oh, you'll get an opportunity to be in front of all these people. Had absolutely no budget and wanted me to fly across the country to be their beck and call girl for a day, and I was like, nope. You know, like, yeah, I'm sure there's probably somebody that I can connect with, and I'm not traveling for free to build your brand and to do that.
Exactly, you can't do it for free, and that's where it becomes, you know, do they want you
No,
enough to pay you?
But I will say, on the flip side, this conference that I went to this weekend, we all spoke for an hour. That was worth it for me to invest. I was brought on as press or as a speaker, so I didn't pay for the conference, but I paid for the trip to get there and everything else that went there. But I got a crap ton of swag. I got in front of 20 brands whom I absolutely adore their product, and so that balance, that works for me.
Yeah.
That was a marketing investment for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I got to poke Sheffy live.
Always good. So one of the things here is, yeah, you know, be the person that you need to be for the business situation. Some people are going to want face-to-face. And I'd even say that the Hangout host is going to be one of those positions as well. There are companies out there who are going to want to bring in a video company, have their own studio and make it look really slick. And if you're going to be a kind of presenter that's for hire, you need to be ready to do those kind of things. You probably won't get very many of them, but at least be ready. I also think that you could get quite a bit of extra attention in the early days training hosts, and not in just the technical stuff, but in the things you've learned about how to roll with the punches. You know, the tech goes wrong sometimes, and still get out there, get your game face on, go ahead. I think, you know, there's a lot of value to a lot of companies in that, where they would maybe want to, you know, own the personality much more than hire one.
You know, and I think there's a lot of people doing that. Denise Wakeman and I have actually done a class on that, on how to pretty much finding your Hangout voice. And that you have to be careful in that as well, because I have such a unique style and she has such a unique style. But what was fun is we brought it together, and, you know, kind of presented it overall. But you know what, I love. You know, I saw her this week, and I'll go to an insurance conference with Denise Wakeman. I love her so much. I'll do anything. But it was a ton of work, and not really my target audience. I think there's people that probably do that better or get lit up by it better. That what I'm trying to really stay focused on is, if I'm doing it, am I really enjoying it? That's it. I mean, I pinged my clients when I did the Hangout Host for Hire, and it's not a topic I'm familiar with, but that half an hour I felt in the zone and felt like I was really doing what I was good at.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
One of the things that translates over from e-commerce, and it's something I found years ago, but it really does work, is it's sometimes worth offering services that won't sell, just to be seen to be complete. I mean, one of the real things there is any kind of e-commerce, do gift wrapping. Most people won't take gift wrapping apart from at Christmas. But if you offer gift wrapping, it automatically sets you apart as that bit more professional. You've got that bit more service, and that changes people's whole perception of your service.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll get 20% more sign-ups for your regular product just because people are now reassured that you're a smart, thoughtful, servicing company.
Full body.
It's one of those things, you know, do sometimes think of rounding out the whole offer, even with things that people won't take, or by pricing them at a level where most people definitely aren't going to take it. I don't really want to do that, so put a premium price on it. Now it's there, most people won't take it, and if somebody does, do you know what? The money's good enough that you don't mind.
Right, that really is a balance. Can I just point out something wonky that's going on with Hangouts right now?
Yeah.
I can do this custom lower third that you did for me, but I can't wear my tiara at the same time.
They had something go wrong, didn't they, with the overlays? I mean, ever since Comment Tracker 2 came in, screen share, lower thirds, everything seems to be arguing with each other now. I don't know what they changed, but yeah, there's definitely some kind of conflict going on inside the system.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to
another reason why, you know, I really do strongly recommend XSplit when you're doing these kind of things.
Wait, but it lets me put this on, but it won't let me put a tiara on. I just want to. I'm going to report this right now.
they're picking on you specifically, aren't they? They've gone, Mia's on a hangout today. Let's disable tiaras.
I think so.
Well, let's get a move. This is a challenge to everyone in the who's watching in the audience. They need to put their 2 cents in as well. They need to complain as well.
Thank you. Hey, can I also introduce somebody else who's here today?
Yeah.
Bob Voss in the house. Hey, he's sitting in the grass. This is one of his first hangouts, so thanks for letting me bring him on. Bob Voss in a box, people.
Yeah. we miss Bob, so it's nice to know he's still around.
He is still around, for sure. I mean, talk about style too. Scott and I have had numerous conversations because Scott, you and I have known each other for over a year, I think, right?
Yeah.
And so in the early days, and you and I had a lot of conversations when I was building. It was still the social media power chat, and that was a painful time building the brand when first of all, there weren't that many women doing Hangouts, and the Hangouts that were on were just very serious and very content heavy and just not a lot of humor. So I didn't know how it was going to go.
And then you came along. Well, you know, I see it that the progression is you learn your way to, you know, go to the bathroom, and then you kind of find your voice, and then you perfect your.
Your analogy is that I like it.
You perfect your craft, and then you go from there. And I'll just jump in right now with this analogy, and I'd be happy to see how you guys respond to this. When I first got into broadcasting, it was at a 1,000-watt radio station from midnight till 6. I worked 36 hours a week, and I replaced Gary Pringle. He left, and he went to another radio station, another radio station, another radio station, then came back and worked at a 50,000-watt radio station, making $8 an hour, and I was still stuck back then at minimum wage, which was $1.60. So the same period of time, he had just gone all over the place, and he had perfected his craft. And I was just sitting with the same skill set that, you know, he had left, you know, the 2-3 years before. So what I think I've seen you do, Mia, is that, you know, you're perfecting your craft, and as a leader in the space, you were the first, for example, to bring in all professional hosts during your groundbreaking New Year's Day, you and Christine. And that was the first Hangout that I had ever seen where everyone just knew the technology absolutely perfectly, and it was that they were all personalities and had charisma, and it just went on for 4 hours, and it was at that time we knew, at least I knew, that Hangouts had arrived. Or that they would arrive.
Thanks. Yeah, that was interesting. I don't know, Ammon or Lee, if you've ever seen that, but yeah, that was fun. That was kind of a free for all, wasn't it?
Well, it was free for all, but you the two of you were orchestrating it, and it just went on so smoothly. So, I guess that's
part of having a good co-host and then good guests too. I mean, we couldn't go wrong with those guests, right?
But nobody had done that until you guys had done it. So I don't know if that's correct English or not.
No, I don't. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that was one of the first ones too. So thank you. Yeah, that was fun. I forgot about that. I need to go back and rewatch that. 4 hours of nutty. That was
Okay.
before it went to
Let's get this back onto the stuff that can actually sort of help with business and moving
Oh,
forwards
okay.
rather than
Look at
we've spent a lot of time reflecting, which is fun. But
Look
let's
at
move forward.
Scott. Now he's taking you to the woodshed.
Well, actually, that's a foundation for something that might be brought up in a little bit. But go ahead, Ammon. I don't mean to
It was. We had a point.
hijack your program.
It is something that it's trying out the Hangouts in new styles, which, quite frankly, somebody mentioned about Tesla and Wi-Fi don't go well together, but that's the same thing of trying out these new techniques so that you can present that to clients and say, I've got experience in this. So I encourage everybody. Our point, and we did have one, I encourage everybody, to try new stuff out, because then you can present it to people and say, I've tried it. I'm good at this.
Yeah.
But I will say, don't ever do those shows without having.
My take on that is experiment a lot, but let people know it's an experiment up front. Do not do what somebody did and make out that something is a great big presentation, and then it turns out that, well, let's face it, some people were confused that 1 minute they're saying they're a thought leader and that they're an expert in this and that's what it was branded for, and the next minute it's, well, actually I'm just learning it. Well, which is it? Are you learning it or are you an expert? Because you can't be both.
No, and I think that all of us, that's a cautionary tale as well for business, is that I really just don't think that this expert thing, you can say, I'm experienced in this, but I think all of us, I would never use those words. I think probably the only person I know that could get away with it is Ronnie Benser, just because he's been in this for so long, and he's got the numbers to prove it. You know what I mean? If you're going to say you're an expert in this platform and then nothing backs it up, I mean, I think we all need to be cautious of that.
I think, though, the problem is that there is no expert in this. It's still changing. Google are still deciding what to do with the whole thing, so claiming expertise in it, it's kind of like a 2-year-old saying, I'm an expert in being human. Well, yeah, as far as you've got, but do you think that's where humanity ends? Do you think it's got no further to go? You're not an expert. You may know more than most, but you may not. And it's very difficult to know.
But
Go on, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say, at some point, I think that there'll be a day of reckoning, and not for those of us who are in Google Plus and doing Hangouts on Air, but those who are in traditional marketing, because there is a shift. And I can see where we're the new kids on the block, and we're coming in on our white horses and so forth, and we're saying we know how to do it. And here are all of these advertising agencies and PR agencies and whatnot. For A, they don't understand it, and then B, they don't have the skill set. So at some point, I can see the Mia Vosses of this world being able to say, well, actually, we have a new way of doing marketing nowadays, and it isn't the way that you've done traditionally, so you have to make a choice in talking to a potential client. You either do it this way, or you continue on with what you've been doing, and if it's been successful, fine, but as the old way fails, and the difference is that Mia didn't grow up through the industry. Like my friend Gary, he grew up through the industry, but now someone new comes along and they're saying, we've got the rules are different, the fundamentals are the same, but the rules are different, and this is how we do it. And that is the space where that comes after perfecting the craft, the bathroom, the voice, the craft, and then you're ready. And if there's anyone, I see my role here being a cheerleader for Mia, okay, excuse me. But I see Mia as, in so many areas, leading the way, doing groundbreaking broadcasts, including the one this last, the last several days, that when the market is finally ready for her, she will already be front and center. So.
Thanks, brother. Can I jump in on that too? Thank you, because it was big about. It's again, one of the reasons why I did it that way is because I knew I had an audience of a bunch of brands who were going to be walking by. We had invited them in, and then the ones that I didn't get to that day because they happened to be some presentations. Yeah, can I show you something real quick? These are all the business cards as soon as I get done, I've lined them up to send emails, because then I got to do individual interviews with them. But instead of messing with Google Hangouts, because I knew I had terrible Wi-Fi at the convention, I recorded them using my Logitech, and then I'm going to put some nice stuff on them and upload them to YouTube, and then share them with the brands.
Because at the end of the day, it's video, not Hangouts. It's just that Hangouts make it easy for us.
Yes. Yep.
Go ahead, Ammon. I feel like I'm hijacking your show, and I don't want to.
Where I was trying to go 10 minutes ago is that branding and personal branding are a big part of the equation. And it's one of the things I know that we need to discuss. We've got things like, I know some people get very divided over the tiara. The Miara, it's become a trademark for you.
Mm-hmm.
The one
thing, don't watch my show. That's my attitude.
The one thing I think it's great when it's Mia that's being branded. I think that can be a detraction from some of the people who might hire you for their brand stuff, because you need to come across as somebody who can take many roles.
Right.
What we show, the stuff that we put out there is our CV. And when we're looking for somebody to hire, we look to say, have they got experience of doing this? And if we put too much of our unique personality in it, then only the people who want that personality can hire us. It's not always a bad thing, but it can massively reduce the market. So how much time and attention at the moment do you have to put into branding? I know that it's a thing that all of us do struggle with. How is it for you?
I think that the biggest thing is, again, go back to, as I said earlier, that you really do want to, you just kind of want to know, either know what your purpose is, your intent is, or know what you're not going to compromise on. So if that's something that you only want to talk in this niche, you want to niche down, you only want to, go to women 45 to 50, that helps, for one. Then after that, you are not out there just throwing, 100 things against the wall to see what sticks. You know who you're going for. For me, to counteract that, because I'm aware of that, but I also know if I'm not staying in purpose and doing my show and having a good time and making sure my guests have a good time, it's not just about the audience for me. It's the guests. I mean, when they come on, they're like, wow, I had a great time. I said things that I didn't realize I was even thinking about. You know what I mean? It's pulling out a different side of them than they would usually get on other shows, and that could be because they like the back crap crazy when they get to do a call to action that isn't about them, or they get to be in this relaxed atmosphere. And usually when they would go on a local TV show, it would be like, you have to behave. So I'm very careful about just keeping that brand. That's how it's going to be. But what I'm doing is creating, in fact, that was the point of this weekend, is creating a playlist that is of Hangout Ventures for Hire. If you go and watch the Black Lotus, that's a completely different me. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of me. So that's what I'm doing, is creating a playlist. So you can choose what flavor of Mia you want.
Yeah, excellent. And that is one of the things. Also, you brought up another perfect point there. Those things that people say afterwards, oh, I had a great time. It's always important when that's a part of your business, that's part of your social proof. So make sure that those testimonials are where people can see them without having to ask you. So even on my site, which hardly ever gets touched because I don't need the work coming in from it, it's got the testimonials there because it's part of who I am. It's part of what makes me happy about my work. And I think that it's very important, therefore, to pull out those little nuggets from the ends of shows where people said, oh, I've had a great time. Put together a 3-minute show reel of 100 guests, each doing their little quick take as the summary of what the show was about, their words of it. I think there's
And you're saying that for me, right? Of like just start pulling, because I think that I could probably pull from shows as well as the Back Crap Crazy post helps a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid if somebody has made a glowing comment off screen. Ask them if they wouldn't mind just doing a quick private hangout, 2 minutes, just to say what they thought of it for your business.
Okay.
and explain. You know, it's for my Hangout host for hire. You know, can you just say what your experience has been of me as a host? No pressure. You know, say what you like, but here you go.
Are you thinking then that would be a tab on my website of like, because I have a tab for the Hangout host for hire. I also have a tab to watch live for the shows and things like that.
Every single page you create that talks about that should have at least one of those snippets in.
Okay.
Now you can get scripts that could randomly pull in which one is used. There are several WordPress plugins and other plugins and things like that that can automatically rotate them.
I need to clone myself. I did just hire somebody though, so that's good.
That's another thing with any kind of solo business, is the ability to maximize your time, i.e. to duplicate yourself. And yeah, you know, a virtual assistant who can learn how you do things, and then they can do that. They can channel you in certain situations. You know, that's always such a wonderful way to get a lot of your time back.
Yeah, yes, because I can do. Greg always says, he's like, oh, yeah, you could do that, but do you want to? He's like, that's just not your. There's a lot of things. I have a good. That was one good thing out of the masterminds that came through with a strategic mapping and a process map that shows all the stuff I want to hand off and the stuff that I can do, but takes me 10 times longer than someone else could do. Yeah.
I think Yassine is offering a testimonial there in a hurry, so you know, grab him definitely. You want to get, certainly, you know, there are lots of people who are going to say very nice things about the things you've done because you've earned it, so don't be afraid to reach out to them and just ask, because most of them, they'd probably be more upset that you didn't ask than that you did.
I appreciate that. And yeah, people like Yassine who's been watching it for a while, I'm also thinking people who are their Hangout hosts, because I have no problem with shouting out other Hangout hosts who I love their style. So for me, when I get compliments from other Hangout hosts, that's when I'm like, all right, I'm doing well.
Yeah. So let's go to the big audience. One of the things that I wanted to quickly cover, and I'll have to do this relatively quickly, so we've got time for everyone to get in some extra questions before the end, is that, you know, Google Plus is still a very, very small bubble in the larger world of things. YouTube is much bigger, particularly for the replays.
Yes.
But you look at something like Twitch, and for live, nothing beats this. And the reason is simply the amount of focus that this had as a niche. You know, it was the gamers who very early went there and really started to make Twitch work. I was watching a stream the other day on one of the few games I do play. This one was a World of Tanks one. I was just looking to see what was going on. He's doing nothing special. He's live streaming as he's practicing some new game mode that had just come in. He hasn't mastered it, so this wasn't a master class. He's just doing it as he's going along. There were 1,000 live viewers, and he's not one of the megastars, but there were 1,000 live viewers.
And he just does. It's like a YouTube live event, Ammon?
Yes, sort of. I mean, Twitch really does have the gamer market sewn up very much, and all of the games. Esports are becoming as big as real sports. Already, you are getting the kind of audiences for some of those esports that, you know, World Wrestling is getting, and with just as much opportunity for merchandising, because there are more and more the films of the games and the toys of the games and the books of the games. So gaming companies have been investing heavily into video. And if somebody was looking right now for a career in hosting, live broadcasting, outside of the TV industry, Twitch is where I'd say to look straight away, because I have seen companies investing millions of dollars. Not hundreds of dollars, millions of dollars. And one of the things in marketing is go where the money is, go where the market is, go where people are already willing to spend, because there's a great thing there. So certainly I'd suggest having a look at Twitch in detail. look at some of the game shows generally. There are a few sort of, you know, the PC magazine type things. They often have their own Twitch channel and regular things going on. So if you could tie into an electronics or gaming company and say, look, I've got experience doing this, you look like you've got a product that would really do well on this, let's hook up. I'm willing to host one. That could be some very serious money because they can see examples. It's difficult on G+, because what we're seeing is everyone doing it from home. The expectation is that most of it's going to be from home. Right now, we're in transition. We are seeing the quality going up.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you know, I've got a £300 studio, and okay, this looks quite good, but it's not at professional quality yet. And this still gets noticed. This still gets attention, which tells you that the budget isn't here yet. Now, we can plug away and try and get it there, but I think one of the things is that's good, but you only do that on half your time. Think of Google Plus right now for business as R&D. You are trying to develop a market for the future. But where the market already is YouTube, the video on their own sites, and channels like Twitch.
You know, it'd be interesting too, because you mentioned, and I love that we had that conversation before, and I love your background too, so that would be kind of fun. We spoke about that too, of getting into that and switching it up, right? So that it can be ambidextrous, or however you want to say it. But wouldn't that be interesting if Twitch is this like gamer market that couldn't be any further than obviously what I am, a woman in my late 40s. So, you know, it'd be interesting to bring that to them and to say, hey, would you like to like to have somebody that reaches a different audience? Because, you know, my audience on the Mia Connect is, I think it's 35 to, like, generally 35 to 60-year-olds, and almost 50-50 male-female. So those are good numbers of people who have money to spend.
But I think there's some real opportunity there, because games don't have to be computer games. And we've seen a game show HOA do quite well. And that was only one. You know, I'm not necessarily thinking that live streamed Scrabble is going to go mainstream, although with the right contestants, I bet it could. But I do think that there are more games than just the classic computer games.
Yeah.
Remember who just bought Twitch? Who just bought Twitch was Amazon.
That's right. Look at you should see the comments. People are like, Twitch, what? You're making people Twitch.
Yeah. But as Dave has just put up there, if you put Minecraft into a YouTube search box, so many gameplay videos come up. If you look on Twitch, there are even more, and these are people showing the worlds they've created. They've set them to music. They've got things that are showing all the clever things they've done. And Minecraft is mostly a slightly younger audience. If you look at the real esports, you look at some of the really competitive games where it's against each other, wow. There's some serious stuff out there. There are world championships, and there are budgets that you wouldn't believe. I had mentioned before the League of Legends game where I was watching the World Championships. It's in Asia. It was 10 a.m., dead hours of the morning in the US, and yet when I looked to see how many viewers of this there were live, there were 340,000 live viewers.
Can you imagine those numbers with the stuff that we're doing?
Yeah, you know, it's not going to happen yet for the smaller Hangouts, but you know, some of the stuff we do is interesting enough that it should be pulling an audience of thousands. It's just that at the moment, Hangouts is seen as A, a bit amateur, B, it's a waste of time, a pleasant waste of time, but it's a waste of time. And I think slowly we will get away from that. I think more and more people have seen the value. I mean, I know I often prefer watching Hangouts, and when it's a good show, I'd rather be doing that than television anytime. But I do think that YouTube's going to be one of the keys to that. YouTube's where people already watch. So if we can put more stuff on YouTube that is branded as having come from G+, that will make more people aware of Hangouts as a real value stream. I.e., it's when they wanted to watch video, and now they're aware of Hangouts as a means to create it.
Yep.
And a way to catch it live.
Creating content, catch it live, meet new people, roundtable, just this community type of thing, which is what happens within a lot of our shows with the conversation.
Yeah. Now, Scott, how much, you know, this is a fantastic thing. If you look at what we had to do with, you know, TV, with community TV in the early days, wow, this has just opened up the world, hasn't it? But how far do you think this has got to go, looking at what happened with that, which has almost been overshadowed by the internet? The internet's kind of made it so much easier that I'm not sure people see the value in the TV one anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So community access, for people who don't know about it in the United States, literally thousands of communities across the United States each had their public access or community access channels, which would broadcast to everyone who is in that geographic location. And in Seattle, there were dozens of people who went through our studios and then went on to careers that were fundamentally influenced by their experience. But very few, I can count on maybe one hand, really broke through to the big time because it was a local market. Bill Nye, the science guy, is one of the people who, you know, started off in our studio. So I think that the difference is that Hangouts now have the national and international audience, and it makes it so easy with pretty high tech satellite trucks and you know, good, you know, all of the other, you know, types of technologies that are there. So there was, you know, I think that what is in place now is fundamentally different than what I was experiencing in the 1980s and 1990s. Plus, there are a lot of, the market is different. People no longer want to have traditional advertising thrown at them, and this platform is compatible with a new way of looking at things. So I think there's just terrific. The fruit is now ripe, and the technology has increased to the point where they're intersecting. And it might be that just like Twitch came out of nowhere. I mean, who heard of it a year ago? There a year or two from now. Well, you did. All right. We're leading edge. We are with the new Twitch where people were a year or two ago with them. So it might be that in 3 years will be the next big thing. It just hasn't happened quite yet.
Yeah, I know you had a comment there.
Well, I think what's interesting when Scott's talking about this, you know, the broadcast, you know, the days of the public broadcasting. What's even cooler now is in order to even have those shows, and you wanted to satellite in, you had to get this really big technology that came with it. But now you can do things like have Chef Dennis start a Hangout, invite me in, and then Nazim and Elizabeth are on top of the Duomo in Italy. So you've got these 3 people in these different places. I mean, how cool is that to really present that as well?
Yes, and this is another way that I think things are going. I can't talk too much about this at the moment because it's something I was suggesting to somebody else, but I was talking about a conference that was a Hangout event and a live event simultaneously at 5 cities around the world. So basically you'd have the big screen, each of the venues would have a podium and an audience, and there would be speakers at each one, but each is in the Hangout, and you can blue box whichever conference it is and really share the experience and make this a huge worldwide venue. Nothing showcases HOAs better than that, and obviously that's where you'd want to be hosting, to be seen by businesses as the kind of host that they would love to have on their show.
And we just did a very, very small version of that this weekend, yesterday. Yeah. Just to show them more than anything. And then the audience appreciated it too, even though it was, again, just so fly by the seat of the pants. But it's a small version of what you just talked about. I love that. And then you just, your biggest things would be to get the, you know, the bandwidth and the sounds, and then you're set.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly pull up a comment from Sheila here, because she's absolutely spot on. She's saying she'd love to see you do a series of one-on-one interviews with interesting people that we haven't heard of. And
that's how I started, Sheila.
Yeah.
That was
I
actually
think
how I started. I'd love to go back to it. Thank you.
showing that you can make other people's stories interesting and get them out of people is one of the things I do love in you know, quite a lot of your shows. You really do have that. You have got the ability to get people to relax, to get those stories out of them, and to make them accessible. And I think that is one of the places where you've got to do the manly thing, go where you're beautiful, because you do that very, very well, and that's a skill that can transfer across.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Sheila. Yay.
Well, we're kind of at time, so regrettably we're going to have to cut this. Let me hand it over to everyone to give some last thoughts and plug anything they want to plug. So I will start off with our guest client for this week, Mia.
I can't wait to check out Twitch. Yay! And then this week I have Sarah Hill is coming on my show this Friday, so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to get my infotainment on with her. So come see us on Friday. And thank you so much for ammonizing me. And then I'm coming on in 2 weeks again, right?
Next week we do the follow-up, which is where we can really dive into anything the audience have asked us that isn't great for a quick comment kind of reply. I go into in depth. We do the sort of deep dive on what's behind the advice next week. So we'll probably do a little bit more on exactly what goes into deciding where to make a stand, where to be flexible,
what to throw out, what to keep.
Yeah, understanding that you have the right and the choice to do anything, but you also have to accept the consequences of that. And sometimes taking a stand on one thing will exclude another market. Whereas,
brother, amen.
It's one of those things. If you don't stand for anything, you stand for nothing. So.
I love it. Thank you. That really is what I preach. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott.
Well, I just want to mention the Scott treatment, which is the utilization of video in order to make Hangouts on Air more powerful. And if I have a call to action or anything I want to relate to people, is to think of video editing as a 21st century skill that anyone and everyone can learn. And it doesn't take that long, though it does take a little bit of effort. But it's not the sort of thing that you're going to learn today, and it's not going to serve you for the rest of your life. So I would encourage everyone to either think about that for themselves or to get that capability in-house. But then sometimes it becomes time-consuming. It's highly labor-intensive, and sometimes you need to hire it out. But for the most part, most of the power of video is, I think, something that people can have within their own destiny. They don't have to rely on other people.
Yeah, great points. Great points. Lee.
Totally on discussion for this week's show. Actually, I've got a ton of private client hangouts, showing them how to do it, what to do, those kind of things. But mainly the best one coming up on Tuesday. I've got two great hangouts on the UK Biz Hangouts. One in the afternoon, we're talking about co-working, collaboration, those kind of things. That's at 2:30 in the afternoon UK time. Don't know what that is American time. And then in the evening at 8 o'clock, we've got the 40-second hangout. So check the stream, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, cool. As ever, I'm doing my usual thing. I shall be everywhere I can possibly be over the next week. But you'll also catch me, obviously, on the Susie chat on Tuesdays. And, well, I'm told you can't miss me these days. I seem to pop up everywhere, don't I? So, once again, thank you so much to everyone on my panel today, to all of the audience for some wonderful questions, and I will be diving in as much as I can to that and looking for ones that we'll be doing the deep dive on next week. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed the show, plus the video, subscribe to the channel. It all helps me get the message out there. Thanks a lot, everyone.